The life of St. Augustine. St. Augustine was born in Tagaste in Numidia, present-day Souk Aris in East Algeria, on November 13, 354. His father was a wealthy Berber landowner and pagan. His mother, the future Saint Monica, was a devout Christian. His father's hedonist ways had a strong influence on Augustine in his early life. He forsook his Christian upbringing at age 16 to attend school in Carthage, where he dabbled with astrology. St. Augustine was a womanizer, gambler and critic of the virtues. He fathered a son from a mistress before he turned 20, lived with her for 10 years out of wedlock, and then dumped her so he could marry a socialite. Even after he entered a monastery he used to pray, "Give me chastity, but not yet." Some scholars believe that St. Augustine was gay. This assertion is based in part on a passage from Confessions about a man he knew as youth. "I felt that his soul and mine were one soul in two bodies, and therefore life without him was horrible. I hated to live as half of a life." After the man's death, Augustine said he contemplated suicide, but "I feared to die, lest he should die holy whom I had loved so greatly." Despite his hedonistic ways, St. Augustine was drawn to religious cults that preached self-denial. At age 17, Augustine set off to school in Carthage. There the underachiever became enraptured with his studies and started to make a name for himself. He immersed himself in the writings of Cicero and Manichaean philosophers and cast off the vestiges of his mother's religion. His studies completed, Augustine returned to his hometown of Tagaste to teach rhetoric, and some Manichaeism on the side. Manichaeism philosophy is based on the teachings of a Persian named Mani, was a dualist corruption of Christianity. It taught that the world of light and the world of darkness constantly war with each other, catching most of humanity in the struggle. Augustine tried to hide his views from his mother, Monica, but when she found out, she threw him out of the house. But Monica, who had dreamt her son would become a Christian, continued to pray and plead for his conversion and followed him to Carthage when he moved there to teach. When Augustine was offered a professorship in Rome, Monica begged him not to go. Augustine told her to go home and sleep comfortably in the knowledge that he would stay in Carthage. When she left, he boarded a ship for Rome. After a year in Rome, Augustine moved again, to become the professor of rhetoric for the city of Milan. He began attending the cathedral to hear the impressive oratory of Ambrose the bishop. He soon dropped his Manichaeism in favor of Neoplatonism, the philosophy of both Roman pagans and Milanese Christians. One afternoon, while walking in his garden, he suddenly heard a child's sing-song voice repeating, "Take up and read." On a table lay a collection of Paul's epistles he'd been reading. He picked it up and read the first thing he saw. "Not in reveling and drunkenness, not in lust and wantonness, not in quarrels and rivalries. Rather, arm yourselves with the Lord Jesus Christ, spend no more thought on nature and nature's appetites." He later wrote, "No further would I read, nor needed I, for instantly at the end of this sentence, by a light as it were of serenity infused into my heart, all the darkness of doubt vanished away." Augustine's conversion sent shockwaves through his life. He resigned his professorship, dashed off a note to Ambrose telling of his conversion, and retreated with his friends and mother to a country villa in Cassiciacum. There he continued discussing philosophy and churning out books in a Neoplatonist vein. After half a year, he returned to Milan to be baptized by Ambrose, then headed back to Tagaste to live as a writer and thinker. The story goes that, seeing the renowned layman in church one Sunday, Bishop Valerius put aside his prepared sermon and preached on the urgent need for priests in Hippo. The crowd stared at Augustine and then pushed him forward for ordination. Against his will, Augustine was made a priest. In 395, he was appointed the coadjutor bishop of Hippo and was soon promoted to the position of full bishop, hence gaining the name Augustine of Hippo. He held this position till 430. Guarding the church from internal and external challenges topped the new bishop's agenda. The Church in North Africa was in turmoil. Though Manichaeism was already on its way out, it still had a sizable following. Augustine, who knew its strengths and weaknesses, dealt it a death blow. Less easily handled was Donatism, a schismatic and separatist North African church. They believed the Catholic Church had been compromised and that Catholic leaders had betrayed the Church during earlier persecutions. Augustine argued that Catholicism was the valid continuation of the Apostolic Church. He wrote scathingly, "The clouds roll with thunder, that the house of the Lord shall be built throughout the earth, and these frogs sit in their marsh and croak, we are the only Christians." In 411 the controversy came to a head as the imperial commissioner convened a debate in Carthage to decide the dispute once and for all. It was not, however, a time of rejoicing for the Church. The year before the Carthage conference, the barbarian general Alaric and his troops sacked Rome. Many upper-class Romans fled for their lives to North Africa, one of the few safe havens left in the empire. And now Augustine was left with a new challenge, defending Christianity against claims that it had caused the empire's downfall by turning eyes away from Roman gods. Augustine argued that Rome was punished for past sins, not new faith. His lifelong obsession with original sin was fleshed out, and his work formed the basis of the medieval mind. "Mankind is divided into two sorts," he wrote. "Such as live according to man, and such as live according to God. These we call the two cities. The heavenly city outshines Rome. There, instead of victory, is truth." One other front Augustine had to fight to defend Christianity was Pelagianism. Augustine argued with the former bishop Pelagius, who was excommunicated by the Church, for the last 10 years of his life. In the summer of 429, the Vandals invaded North Africa, meeting almost no resistance along the way. Hippo, one of the few fortified cities, was overwhelmed with refugees. In the third month of the siege, the 76-year-old Augustine died, not from an arrow but from a fever. Miraculously, his writings survived the Vandal takeover, and his theology became one of the main pillars on which the Church of the next 1,000 years was built. Augustine was canonized by popular recognition and recognized as a doctor of the Church in 1303 by Pope Boniface VIII. His feast day is August 28, the day on which he is thought to have died.